I wasn't intending for two arcade beat-em-ups to be in the same episode, but I had to push back a longer game for time reasons, so here is Sengoku. It's one of those games I always saw on the eShop and was always slightly interested in, but never actually went ahead and downloaded it. And now, 5 years later, I finally just went and did. For story, a warlord who revelled in destruction was defeated by two samurai 400 years ago. Before dying, he left a prophecy saying he'd be returning in 400 years with another madman to take over the world. Those 400 years have passed and what he said has happened. But it's okay because the descendants of the original two samurai have shown up, Ninja Dave and Cowboy Kev, the latter being the Player 2 character and thus not appearing in the playthrough. Yeah, that's about it. Stage 1 starts on an abandoned motorway where I have to face claw-wielding ninjas. I have an attack button with a basic combo and can jump. After taking them out, I am dragged into the heavens where I have to face 3 katana-wielding men. One drops a red orb that grants me a sword to use, and a purple orb that gives me a two-handed sword. The warlord's castle floats down from the sky and releases more ninjas. Some of these drop green orbs which heal me by 1 health point. Then there's the cyan orb that grants me 2 swords at once. These are pretty good and lets me wipe out a whole group of spear soldiers with 1 swing. My next enemy is a giant floating skull constantly spitting out more ninjas. When I destroy it, I've helped out this old dude who says he'll help me out before I'm dropped back down to the world below. As these jumping men with short swords charging from off screen, I have temporary energy ball punches that take them out easily. I try crossing this bridge but also have to avoid the cracks in the floor spewing fire. Archers also join in but they're no threat. Taking another sword was a mistake though since it overrode my punch power up. But I grab a yellow orb that has me punching out different projectiles, but it runs out by the time the castle floats down again and drops off this huge guy with a staff. As soon as I defeat him, I'm dragged back up into the clouds where I have to quickly punch out this samurai, saving the dog spirit and granting me a transformation. I use it to take on more samurai. The transformations have a limited time per continue and the dog one is just okay. Its attack doesn't feel like it has much range or feel that useful, but when it gets a power up and barks energy wave, that improves it a bit. I also gain the samurai transformation in this fight. I take out all the enemies and I'm dropped back down to the bridge. It's then more of the same until I make it a bit further and use a samurai transformation, right before getting dragged up into the heavens to fight 2 staff wielders. The samurai was the only one I found consistently useful thanks to quick attacks that actually hit, and so I used this one far more often than the other transformations. I take them out and continue through this section facing more of the same until the castle shows up once again and drops off enemies that when killed grant me the final transformation, the ninja. It then puts me back on the bridge. The screen darkens and I'm somehow riding on the back of a load of purple horses. I become the ninja for the first boss, a guy using 2 daggers who jumps around throwing out fire spells. I hated using the ninja. His constant flipping when I just wanted to walk and his not that great attacks just made that form a chore to use. I do enough damage to the boss and he changes form too. He managed to throw 1 knife before I just kept punching him to death. Between each level we get to see the warlord send out his next follower to deal with us. Stage 2 drops me into the ruins of a city, then I fall through the floor down into the subway. The first new enemy I face here is a fat guy with a scimitar. Then comes the guy with the katana who's so busy taking sumo stances he doesn't stop me cutting his face open. After taking out the next group I'm dragged back up into the sky. I take out the 3rd group of spear soldiers, and then next this becomes the 3rd video in a row where the game has a kabuki themed enemy. I did not plan it out this way. He jumps around throwing fans at me and since I haven't realised how much I hate the ninja yet, I pin him in the corner with it and keep doing jump kicks until he dies. After saving the old man, I'm dropped back into the subway. The first boss's second form has now been demoted to a regular enemy. After killing him, I run into an issue with the orbs, depth perception. It can be really picky when deciding if I'm on the same level as it, giving the orb time to just float off. I get a couple more minutes with nothing new and then I'm beamed up into the sky again. Here I get something new with giant kappas that fight by backhanding me in the face. Take them all out and I get brought up even higher. The castle appears and makes me fight a long wave of ninjas, followed by the first boss's first form again. I take him out and a few more enemies to get attacked by an Oni riding a cloud, shooting out tiny versions of himself from his bag. It's very hard to approach him as the small ones are constant and keep stunning me enough for him to back away, so I just rely on jump kicking through them to get a hit on him. He doesn't actually take many hits to kill. Back in the subway and after a couple more minutes fighting through the enemies, the boss appears, a floating woman with a katana. And that's 2 beat 'em ups in a row where a boss likes to attack using only Hagar's double lariat. This makes her really easy as she just spins herself into my sword. I take her out and she transforms into a giant demon dog. She'll jump to pounce on me and fire energy waves by barking. But she's also very easy to stun lock as long as you keep within hitting range, so this form doesn't take long to defeat either. I get the same cutscene as before but with a new boss, exact same dialogue too. Stage 3 plants me back in the city, but without falling through the floor this time. After taking out the first enemies, you have to be careful around this oil spill as it will catch fire for a bit once you get close. Then I get another couple of minutes with returning enemies before I'm brought back up into the heavens. Here the statues carrying lamps come to life and use their lamps to shoot lasers at me. Destroying one of them frees a woman's spirit, then I have to take on a big staff guy and more statues before dropping back down into the city, where the castle breaks it in two and makes me fall with one of the halves, so now I'm walking underground. I deal with a lot of the same enemies I've faced before, and then I realise that I just find this game boring, but I'll get into it more at the end. I reach the castle in the crater and take out the enemies there to make it disappear. Taking out this last lot here sends me into a bamboo sky garden. The new enemies up here are women fighting with normal punches and kicks, which makes them easy to defeat. 2 waves of those taken down and I'm dropped back into the half of the city that wasn't sunk. The boss then appears, a big armoured demon with a katana. He'll throw giant arrows as well, and if you trap him at the edge of the screen, he'll just jump all the way to the opposite side. So I just keep jump kicking towards him and then get a few extra hits in before he jumps to the opposite side and just repeat until he's dead. No second form this time. Stage 4 then has me high up in the ruins of a building. I run along, taking everyone out until I jump down a hole into a sewer. Not much new here except for the Stage 2 boss becoming a regular enemy. Then I'm beamed back up into the clouds with a big painting behind me. Said painting comes to life and acts as a head swap of the Stage 2 boss's second form, but this one on death splits into several smaller versions of itself. They're easy at first thanks to the projectile power up I had, but it runs out and leaves me with 2 left that all my attacks keep going over. It takes a while to aim those hits right so I can move on. Then a giant blue head tries to crush me and dies from a single punch before I drop down into the building. I end up outside, dealing with more enemies directly from the castle until I'm brought back into the sky to face a giant head and its one giant grabby hand. The head is constantly spitting out these purple projectiles that are also the same sprite making up its neck. I ignore the hand and keep punching the head until it turns red and then shrinks into nothing. With it out of the way, I can then beat the hand to death. I then drop back into the sewer to take on more kappas, then back into the clouds to deal with even more enemies, including taking on 3 previous bosses at once. After them, I'm dropped back down into the building, and soon after I reach the boss, a huge demon in gold armour riding in on a horse. He fights with a shorter sword and can send projectiles along the ground. That and sword slashes are his only attacks, so I just stick with the samurai form and take him down quickly. Stage 5 has me leaving the sewer into a cave. Absolutely nothing new here until I take out the enemies and get lifted up to the surface outside this temple. I get a new kind of sword wielder up here that actually puts effort into staying alive as they backflip away from my punches when I get close. That's all for a while and I end up inside the next building. There is this one woman walking out of the doorway, but I manage to kill her before she can do anything. The trapdoor then opens and drops me back into a cave. Nothing interesting happens before I'm beamed back up. There are these 2 women pretending to still be asleep before they jolt up and run around trying to cut me with a knife. I just keep moving forward, freeing another spirit on the way, and then I realise I must be on the Warlord's floating castle, as I can see a city speeding by in the background. A few minutes later, I drop through the floor onto a roof and continue fighting more of the same until I'm sent back up inside. There are 3 women in the back and 1 takes me on. After enough damage, the 3 of them fuse into a big dragon turtle. It walks around spitting out a spread shot, but most hits I take are from bumping into its head. It's a long, boring fight and I just keep hitting it in the head until it decides to explode and die. I'm then dropped straight into stage 6. So the Warlord appears, but he says he's going to revive the Madman, but I thought the Madman was the one who was doing the reviving in the first place. This game has very little text, but what's there is still unclear. For the final boss, we're both flying and I can freely move around the entire screen. It sounds cool, but you move kinda slow and all you have to do is mash attack and wait for him to get hit. After enough attacks, he bursts into flames and apparently this is both the Warlord and Madman. I don't care enough about this. He surrounds himself with giant pizzas while I have to get in there and slash his body. You can tell I just want the game to be over at this point as I don't care about avoiding damage, I just want to get the hits in. It doesn't take too long before I take him down. For the ending, I get text saying that the villain's failed, but then he says that past errors in history shouldn't be repeated. I mean, that's true, but get attacked by demons is not a mistake that people can just easily avoid. Yeah, I thought this was boring. It's a shame, I was already a little interested and I enjoyed the other SNK beat 'em up I played in Robo Army. But this was just dull with the only way to get the slightest enjoyment being to use the samurai form. Even now, I just feel complete apathy trying to think of things to write. Well, there are 2 more games in this series, so maybe things improve if I ever decide to revisit it in the future.